30 days. That was all the time she had left before she and her 5-year-old daughter Emma would be out on the streets. The medical bills from Emma's recent surgery had drained every last penny from her savings. Her freelance graphic design work barely covered their basic needs. "Mommy, are you crying?" Emma's small voice cut through the silence. Girl stood in the doorway of their tiny living room, clutching her worn teddy bear. Her dark eyes wide with concern that no child should have to carry. Sophia quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "No, sweetheart. Mommy just has something in her eye." She folded the notice and tucked it into her laptop bag. "Go get ready for bed. I'll be there in a minute to read you a story." As Emma padded back to their shared bedroom, Sophia collapsed onto their second-hand couch. Her laptop sat open on the coffee table, displaying dozens of job applications she had submitted over the past week. All had been met with polite rejections or complete silence. Her art degree from the local community college and limited work experience made her an easy candidate to overlook in a competitive market. Her phone buzzed with a notification from a job search app. So usually these were just spam or positions that required experience she didn't have. But this one was different. The posting was vague yet intriguing. Personal assistant to high-profile executive. Immediate start. Exceptional compensation for the right candidate. Discretion required. The salary listed made her heart skip a beat. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of earning. Enough to pay off Emma's medical bills, keep their apartment, and maybe even put some aside for Emma's future education. But something about the posting felt off. No company name was listed. It's just a phone number and an email address. Sophia read the posting 3 more times before her desperation won over. Her caution. She crafted a careful response, highlighting her organizational skills and her ability to handle confidential information. Within minutes of sending the email, her phone rang. "Miss Chen." The voice on the other end was crisp, professional, with an undertone that suggested the speaker was used to being obeyed without question. "My name is James. I represent a client who may be interested in your services. Are you available for an interview tomorrow morning?" "Yes, of course," Sophia replied, grabbing a pen to take notes. "Could you tell me more about the position?" "Details will be discussed during the interview. Please arrive at the Meridian Tower, penthouse level, at 9 a.m. sharp. Come alone and bring identification." The line went dead before Sophia could ask any more questions. She stared at her phone, a mix of excitement and unease churning in her stomach. The Meridian Tower was one of the most exclusive buildings in the city, home to tech companies and billionaire executives. Whatever this job was, it was clearly legitimate and high-paying. The next morning, Sophia stood before the imposing glass facade of the Meridian Tower, wearing her only good business suit and carrying a portfolio of her design work. The elevator ride to the penthouse seemed to last forever, her reflection in the polished steel doors showing a young woman, trying desperately to look more confident than she felt. The doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city and modern art adorned the walls. A distinguished man in his 50s, wearing an impeccably tailored suit, approached her. "Miss Chen, I presume? I am James. We spoke yesterday." His handshake was firm, his manner polite, but reserved. "Please, follow me. Mr. Cross is waiting." They walked down a long hallway lined with original paintings that Sophia recognized from art history textbooks. Everything about this place screamed wealth and power. James stopped before a set of double doors made of dark wood and knocked softly. "Enter," came a voice from within. The office beyond the doors was larger than Sophia's entire apartment. A massive desk dominated one end of the room, behind which sat a man who looked to be in his mid-30s. Nathan Cross was devastatingly handsome in a way that seemed almost engineered, with sharp cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, and dark hair perfectly styled. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Sophia made in 6 months. Didn't look up from his computer screen when she entered, leaving her standing awkwardly in front of his desk for several long moments. When he finally raised his eyes to meet hers, Sophia felt as though she was being assessed, catalogued, and judged all at once. "Sit," he said simply, gesturing to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Sophia sat, clasping her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her with those intense blue eyes. Sophia Chen, 26 years old, single mother to a 5-year-old daughter. Recently unemployed after your previous employer went out of business. Currently facing eviction due to medical bills. He recited the facts of her life, as if reading from a report, which she realized with growing alarm he probably was. "How do you know all that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I make it my business to know everything about the people I consider employing." Nathan stood and walked around his desk, stopping just close enough to her chair that she had to crane her neck to look up at him. "The question is whether you're desperate enough to accept the position I'm offering. What kind of position requires investigating someone's personal life?" Nathan returned to his chair, but his eyes never left hers. "I am the CEO of Cross Technologies. I'm worth approximately $8 billion. I have enemies, competitors, and people who would do anything to gain access to my private information. The person I hire as my personal assistant will have complete access to my schedule, my contacts, my home, and my most sensitive business dealings." Sophia's mouth went dry, and the salary listed in the posting is accurate. $50,000 per month, plus benefits, plus a furnished apartment in one of my properties. Nathan's expression didn't change as he delivered this information, as if he were discussing the weather rather than a sum of money that would change Sophia's life forever. "There has to be a catch," she said, suspicion creeping into her voice. Actually, Nathan opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a thick document. "First, you would need to sign an extensive non-disclosure agreement. Any violation would result in immediate termination and legal action that would leave you bankrupt. Second, the position requires complete availability. You would live on my property and be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week." Sophia's heart sank. "I have a daughter. I can't just abandon her. I'm not asking you to. There are excellent schools near my estate, and full-time childcare would be provided." Nathan paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully. "However, there is one more requirement that you may find uncomfortable." The way he said it made Sophia's skin crawl. "What kind of requirement?" Nathan stood again, this time walking to the window and gazing out at the city below. "I require absolute loyalty and complete trust from my employees. To ensure this, everyone who works in my home must undergo a thorough security screening." "A background check? More comprehensive than that?" He turned back to face her, his expression unreadable. "The screening includes a complete physical examination and search to ensure you're not carrying any recording devices or weapons. It's conducted by a licensed physician in a secure facility." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "You're talking about strip searches?" "I'm talking about security protocols that have prevented 3 assassination attempts and countless attempts at corporate espionage." Nathan's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. "The examination is conducted professionally and privately, but it is non-negotiable." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of air conditioning. Sophia's mind raced, weighing her options. The money would solve all her problems, give Emma the life she deserved. But the thought of submitting to such a humiliating examination made her stomach turn. "I understand this is a difficult decision," Nathan said, returning to his desk. "Take your time to consider it. James will show you out." "Wait." The word escaped Sophia's lips before she could stop it. She thought of Emma, of the eviction notice, of the mounting medical bills. If I agree to this, when would I start? Immediately. The examination would be conducted this afternoon, and you could move into the apartment tonight. Nathan's eyes seemed to bore into her soul. "But understand, Miss Chen, once you sign that contract and submit to the screening, there's no going back. You belong to me until I decide otherwise." The possessive way he said those words sent a chill down Sophia's spine, but also sparked something else, something she didn't want to acknowledge. There was a dangerous magnetism about Nathan Cross, a power that both terrified and attracted her. "I need to make arrangements for my daughter," she said quietly. "Already handled. There's a car waiting downstairs to take you home. Pack what you need for both of you. Emma will be enrolled in Westfield Academy starting Monday, and a nanny will be available whenever you're working." The efficiency with which he had planned every detail of her life was both impressive and deeply unsettling. It was clear that Nathan Cross was a man who got what he wanted when he wanted it. "All right," Sophia said, standing on shaky legs. "I'll do it." Nathan nodded, as if he had never doubted her decision. "James will provide you with all the necessary paperwork and arrange for your transportation. Welcome to my employ, Miss Chen." As James escorted her from the office, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a deal with the devil. But when she thought of Emma's bright smile and the chance to give her daughter everything she had ever dreamed of, she knew there was no choice at all. The black sedan that waited for her outside the Meridian Tower was more luxurious than any car she had ever been in. As the driver navigated through the city traffic toward her apartment, Sophia stared out the window at the world she was about to leave behind. Everything was about to change, and she had no idea if it would be for better or worse. But as the car pulled up to her rundown apartment building, she made herself a promise. No matter what Nathan Cross demanded of her, no matter how he tried to control her life, she would never forget who she was or compromise her values. She would take his money, give Emma the life she deserved, and find a way to maintain her dignity. In the process, she had no idea how naive that promise would prove to be. 3 hours later, Sophia stood in the sterile white examination room of a private medical facility, her hands trembling as she clutched the hospital gown James had given her. Dr. Helena Martinez, professional woman in her 40s, with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, explained the procedure one final time. "Miss Chen, I understand this is uncomfortable, but I need you to know that this examination is purely for security purposes," Dr. Martinez said gently. "I've been conducting these screenings for Mr. Cross for over 5 years. Everything will be documented and handled with complete discretion." Sophia nodded, though her throat felt too tight to speak. The contract she had signed earlier contained clauses that would legally destroy her if she ever spoke about what happened in this room. Nathan's reach extended far beyond what she had imagined. "I need you to remove all clothing and jewelry," Dr. Martinez continued. "I'll step outside while you change, then we'll proceed with the examination." When the doctor left, Sophia's hands shook as she undressed. The fluorescent light seemed harsh and unforgiving, and she felt more vulnerable than she ever had in. Her life, the hospital gown, provided little comfort or coverage. Dr. Martinez turned with a clipboard and what appeared to be a handheld scanner. "I'm going to check for any electronic devices, recording equipment, or weapons," she explained, her voice remaining professional and calm. "Please stand with your arms extended." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Sophia's life. Examination was thorough but clinical, and Dr. Martinez maintained a professional demeanor throughout. Still, Sophia had never felt so powerless, so completely at someone else's mercy. "You're clear," Dr. Martinez said finally, making notes on her clipboard. "You can get dressed now. Mr. Cross will be pleased to know you've passed the security screening." Sophia put her clothes back on. She wondered what kind of man required such extreme measures from his employees. Nathan Cross was clearly someone who trusted no one and controlled everything around him with an iron fist. James was waiting in the hallway when she emerged, his expression unreadable. "The car is ready to take you to your new residence," he said simply. "Your daughter and belongings have already been moved." The drive to Nathan's estate took them out of the city and into the hills, where massive properties sat behind high gates and thick hedges. When they finally stopped, Sophia found herself looking at a modern mansion that seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. The architecture was sleek and imposing, all glass and steel and sharp angles that reflected the setting sun. "Is the main house," James explained as they drove through the gates. "Your apartment is in the east wing, completely private but connected to the main building. Miss Emma is already settled in with her new nanny, Miss Patricia." Sophia's heart clenched. She had been so focused on the money and the job that she hadn't fully considered how this would affect Emma. Her daughter was only 5 years old, and now she was living in a stranger's house with a nanny she had never met. "I need to see her immediately," Sophia said. "Of course, Mr. Cross is expecting you both for dinner at 7 o'clock. He wants to meet Miss Emma properly." The apartment James showed her to was larger and more luxurious than any home Sophia had ever lived in. The furniture was expensive, but tasteful. The kitchen was fully stocked. And Emma's new bedroom was decorated with toys and books that must have cost thousands of dollars. Emma ran into her arms the moment she saw her, and Sophia felt some of the tension leave her body. Her daughter seemed happy and excited about their new home, chattering endlessly about the swimming pool and the game room and all the wonderful things she had discovered. "The nanny lady is really nice, Mommy," Emma said, pulling Sophia toward her new bedroom. "And look at all these toys. Are they really mine?" "Yes, sweetheart," Sophia said, though she wondered what price would ultimately be demanded for such generosity. At 7 o'clock sharp, James knocked on their door to escort them to dinner. The dining room in the main house was formal and intimidating, with a table that could easily seat 20 people. Nathan sat at the head of the table, having changed from his business suit into dark slacks and a white dress shirt. He looked more relaxed than he had earlier, but no less commanding. "Emma," he said, standing as they entered. His voice was softer when he addressed the little girl, though still carrying that undertone of authority. "I'm Nathan. Welcome to my home." Emma, who had never been shy around adults, walked right up to him. "Your house is really big," she said seriously. "Do you live here all by yourself?" "Most of the time," Nathan replied, and Sophia caught something that might have been loneliness in his expression. "But now you and your mother are going to live here too. Would you like that?" "Yes," Emma said decisively. "Can I see the swimming pool again after dinner, if your mother says it's all right?" The dinner that followed was surreal. Nathan was surprisingly good with Emma, answering her endless questions with patience and even showing what might have been genuine amusement at her childish observations. But whenever his eyes met Sophia's across the table, she saw something darker there, a reminder of the power he held over her life. After Emma had been taken to bed by Patricia, the nanny, Nathan led Sophia to his study. This room was different from his office at the tower, more personal, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a fireplace that cast dancing shadows on the walls. "Dad, your daughter is charming," Nathan said, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He offered one to Sophia, but she declined. "She seems to have adapted well to the change." "Children are resilient," Sophia replied carefully. "But this is all very overwhelming. For you, perhaps, but not for her." Nathan settled into a leather chair and studied Sophia over his glass. "Tell me, Miss Chen, what did you think of today's security screening?" Sophia felt her cheeks burn. "I think it was degrading and unnecessary." "Degrading." Nathan repeated the word as if tasting it. "And yet you submitted to it willingly." "I submitted to it because I need this job." "Yes, you do." Nathan set down his glass and leaned forward. "But let me be clear about something, Sophia. What happened today was not about humiliating you. It was about establishing trust. You now know that I require absolute compliance from my employees, and I know that you're willing to provide it." The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. It was the first time he had used it without the formal Miss Chen, and somehow that small change felt significant. "Your duties will begin tomorrow," Nathan continued. "James will brief you on my schedule and expectations. You'll find that I'm demanding but fair. Perform your job well, and you'll be rewarded accordingly. And if I don't perform well," Nathan's smile was cold, "then you'll find out exactly how thorough my background investigation was. I know about every debt you owe, every person you care about, every vulnerability you have. Cross me, and I'll use all of it." The threat was delivered in the same calm tone he might use to discuss the weather, which made it all the more chilling. Sophia realized that she had not just accepted a job, she had entered into a kind of bondage, as completely as if he had bought her outright. "I won't give you any reason to threaten me," she said quietly. "Good." Nathan stood, signaling that the conversation was over. "Your first day starts at 6 a.m. Don't be late." As Sophia walked back to her apartment, she felt the weight of her decision settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. She had traded her freedom for financial security, and now she belonged to a man who wielded his power like a weapon. But when she checked on Emma and saw her daughter sleeping peacefully in a beautiful bedroom, surrounded by toys and comfort, she knew she would do it all again. She just prayed that the price Nathan would ultimately demand wouldn't be higher than she was willing to pay. 6 months later, Sophia had settled into a routine that felt both natural and completely alien. Her days were filled with managing Nathan's complex schedule, coordinating his business meetings, and handling the countless details of his personal life. She had proven herself capable and efficient, and Nathan had begun to rely on her judgment in ways that went beyond a typical employer-employee relationship, but it was the nights that troubled her most. The quiet dinners where Nathan seemed almost human, the moments when she caught him watching Emma with something that looked like genuine affection, the way his hand would linger when he passed her a document. There was an attraction growing between them that neither acknowledged but both felt, and it terrified Sophia more than his threats ever had. Emma, meanwhile, had blossomed in their new environment. She attended the prestigious Westfield Academy, had made friends with children from wealthy families, and had begun to see Nathan as something like a father figure. The transformation in her daughter was remarkable, but it also made Sophia more trapped than ever. Away from this life now? On a cold Tuesday morning, Sophia's carefully constructed world began to crumble. She was in Nathan's study, organizing files for an important board meeting, when she accidentally knocked over a stack of documents. As she gathered them up, one folder caught her attention. It was labeled with her name and dated from before she had ever applied for the job. Inside the folder was a complete dossier on her life. But it went far beyond what Nathan had revealed in their first meeting. There were photographs of her and Emma, copies of Emma's medical records, transcripts of phone conversations she had had with friends, even surveillance reports detailing her daily routines from weeks before she had seen his job posting. Nathan had not simply investigated her after she applied for the position. He had been watching her, studying her, planning to recruit her long before she knew he existed. The job posting that had seemed like a miracle was actually a carefully laid trap. You weren't supposed to see that. Nathan's voice came from the doorway, calm as always. Sophia spun around, clutching the folder. You were stalking me, for weeks before I even knew who you were. Nathan entered the study and closed the door behind him. I was researching a potential employee. This goes far beyond research. Sophia's voice was shaking with anger and fear. You investigated my daughter's medical condition, my financial situation, my personal relationships. You manipulated me into applying for this job. I identified someone with the skills I needed and the motivation to accept my terms, Nathan corrected. Everything that happened after that was your choice. Choice? Sophia laughed bitterly. What choice did I have? You knew I was desperate. You knew I would do anything to help Emma. Nathan moved closer and Sophia backed away until she hit his desk. I gave you an opportunity that changed your life. Your daughter is healthy, happy, and receiving the best education money can buy. You're financially secure for the first time in your adult life. How exactly have you been harmed by my actions? You lied to me. You manipulated me. You made me submit to that humiliating examination when you already knew everything about me. Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. You made me feel like I had a choice when this was all planned from the beginning. For the first time since she had known him, Nathan's composed facade cracked. You think this was just about finding an employee? His voice was rougher, more intense. You think I go to these lengths for everyone who works for me? Then what? Was it about? Nathan stared at her for a long moment, and Sophia saw something raw and vulnerable in his eyes that she had never seen before. I saw you at the hospital when you brought Emma in for her surgery. You were terrified, exhausted, but you never left her side. You sold your car to pay for her medication. You took on 3 extra jobs. You would have done anything for her. Sophia's anger faltered, replaced by confusion. You were at the hospital. I donate substantial amounts to the children's wing. I was there for a board meeting. Nathan's voice grew quieter. I watched you fight for your daughter with nothing but determination and love. I've spent my entire adult life surrounded by people who want something from me, who see only my money and power. But you were different. So you decided to buy me. Like everything else in your life? I decided to give you what you needed and see if you might choose to give me what I needed in return. And what do you need, Nathan? The question came out as barely a whisper. Instead of answering with words, Nathan stepped closer and cupped her face in his hands. You, he said simply, and then he kissed her. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but when Sophia didn't pull away, it deepened into something desperate and hungry. All the tension that had been building between them for months exploded in that moment. And Sophia found herself kissing him back with an intensity that shocked her. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers, his hand still framing her face. "This complicates everything," Sophia whispered. "Everything was already complicated," Nathan replied. "The question is whether you can forgive me for the way this started and give us a chance to become something real." Before Sophia could answer, the study door burst open. A woman in her 30s with platinum blonde hair and designer clothes stormed in, followed by a flustered James. "I apologize, sir," James said quickly. Miss Reed insisted she couldn't wait. Olivia Reed, Nathan's former business partner and ex-girlfriend, looked between Nathan and Sophia with calculating eyes. Well, she said with a cruel smile. "No wonder you've been so distracted lately, Nathan. Playing house with the help, Olivia?" Nathan's voice was a scold as he moved protectively in front of Sophia. "You weren't invited?" "No, but I think I should have been. Especially since I've been doing some investigating of my own." Olivia's smile widened. "Did you know that your little assistant here has been asking questions about your business practices? Making copies of files? Photographing documents?" Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "That's not true, isn't it?" Olivia pulled out her phone and showed Nathan a series of photographs. "These were taken by my private investigator last week. Your trusted employee at your desk, going through confidential files after hours?" Nathan looked at the photos, then at Sophia, and she saw his expression close off. The vulnerability that had been there moments before vanished, replaced by the cold calculation she had come to fear. "Nathan, I can explain," Sophia began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "You can explain why you were photographing my business documents? I was trying to understand your relationship with Olivia. Some of the contracts didn't make sense, and I thought she might be trying to sabotage you." Sophia's words came out. "In a rush, I was trying to protect you by spying on me. By trying to figure out what she was planning." Sophia turned to face Olivia. "Because you are planning something, aren't you? This whole confrontation is too convenient, too well-timed." Smile faltered for just a moment, but it was enough. Nathan caught it too, and Sophia saw understanding dawn in his eyes. "What do you want, Olivia?" Nathan asked quietly. "What I've always wanted, partnership. 50% of cross technologies. Or I release information about your less-than-legal business practices to the SEE." Olivia's mask had slipped completely now, revealing the calculating predator beneath. "You have 24 hours to decide." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Nathan, you might want to ask your little pet what Detective Ryan Walsh wanted when he visited her apartment last week. Apparently the FBI is very interested in your business practices as well." After Olivia left, the silence in the study was deafening. Nathan stared at Sophia with an expression she couldn't read. "A detective came to see you," he asked finally. Sophia nodded miserably. "He asked about my job, about what I knew about your business." "I told him nothing, Nathan. I swear I told him nothing. But you didn't tell me he had contacted you. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. I was afraid you'd think I was cooperating with them." Nathan walked to the window and stared out at the gardens where Emma was playing with Patricia. "Maybe you should be cooperating with them," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" "Maybe you should take Emma and disappear before this gets worse. I can arrange new identities, financial support. You could start over somewhere safe." Sophia stared at him in shock. "You want me to leave? I want you to be safe." Nathan turned back to her, and she saw pain in his eyes. "Olivia's right about one thing. Some of my business practices exist in legal gray areas. If the FBI is investigating, if they're talking to you, then you and Emma could be in danger just by being here. And what about you?" Nathan's smile was bitter. "I've been preparing for this possibility for years. I'll survive one way or another." Sophia walked over to him, reaching up to touch his face the way he had touched hers. "I'm not leaving you to face this alone, Sophia." "No." Her voice was firm. "You said you needed me. Well, I need you too. We'll figure this out together." Nathan caught her hand and pressed it against his cheek. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to. If we fight this together, there's no going back. Your life will never be simple again." "My life stopped being simple the day I walked into your office," Sophia replied. "But I'd rather have a complicated life with you than a safe one without you." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Then we fight, he said.
We.
Outside the window, Emma's laughter carried on the wind, and Sophia knew that whatever came next, she would face it standing beside the man who had bought her freedom and stolen her heart in equal measure. Epilogue. 6 months later, the courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators as the judge read the final verdict. Olivia Reed was found guilty on 12 counts of corporate espionage, fraud, and extortion. Her scheme to frame Nathan and force him into partnership had ultimately unraveled. When Detective Walsh's investigation revealed the truth about her manipulation of evidence, Nathan had cooperated fully with the FBI investigation. And while he paid substantial fines for certain questionable business practices, he avoided criminal charges. More importantly, he had restructured Cross Technologies to operate with complete transparency and ethical oversight. Sophia sat in the front row, holding Emma's hand as they watched Nathan shake hands with his legal team. Their relationship had been tested by months of investigation, media scrutiny, and legal battles, but they had emerged stronger than ever. "Is Nathan coming home with us today?" Emma asked, tugging on Sophia's sleeve. "Yes, sweetheart," Sophia replied, smiling as Nathan caught her eye across the courtroom. "Nathan is coming home." That evening, they sat together on the patio of their new house, a more modest place than Nathan's mansion, but a home they had chosen together. Emma was inside with Patricia, who had become more family than employee over the past year. "Any regrets?" Nathan asked, his arm around Sophia as they watched the sunset. "About which part? Agreeing to work for you, falling in love with you, or standing by you through the worst year of your life?" "All of it." Sophia turned to face him, seeing in his eyes the same vulnerability that had first made her fall in love with him. "The only thing I regret is that it took us so long to trust each other completely." Nathan leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "No, this isn't the most romantic setting," he said, dropping to one knee beside her chair. "And I know our beginning was unconventional, but Sophia, will you marry me? Not because you need me, not because I can provide for you and Emma, but because you love me." Sophia looked down at the man who had changed her life in every possible way, who had shown her that sometimes the most dangerous choices led to the greatest rewards. "Yes," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma came running out onto the patio, followed by Patricia. "Are you crying, Mommy?" Emma asked with concern. "Happy tears," Sophia assured her, pulling her daughter onto her lap. "Nathan asked me to marry him." Emma looked between them seriously. "Does that mean he'll be my daddy?" Nathan reached over and smoothed Emma's hair. "If you want me to be." Emma threw her arms around his neck. "I want that very much." As they sat together watching the stars come out, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She had started as a desperate woman, forced to submit to a powerful man's demands. But somewhere along the way, submission had become choice, desperation had become love, the business arrangement had become a family. Nathan had been right about one thing: her life would never be simple again. But as she looked at her daughter's happy face and felt Nathan's arms around her, Sophia knew that complicated was exactly where she wanted to be. The whispered words that had started their story, "Please don't make me take off my clothes," had evolved into, "I choose to give you everything I am." And in that choice, they had both found something neither had been looking for: a love worth fighting for, a family worth protecting, and a future worth building together.